Hey guys, how are you? You guys are both traveling right now.
Good morning or good day, Osvaldo. Nice to see you. And also, we did color coordinate our shirts.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you
You
guys
got,
are
you got the
matching.
memo. You got the memo.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks for being here, guys. I'm just gonna give a quick summary and then I'll intro you guys and then we'll kind of hop into the chat. So yeah, today's panel, their dedication of being of service to this world will inspire you to elevate your life and business. Whether you're a budding social entrepreneur seeking to launch your nonprofit venture or a business leader looking to incorporate or integrate corporate social responsibility into your organization, this panel will definitely ignite your passion for social change. And we have Oswaldo here, one of my dear friends. He's an experienced and innovative social worker with over 12 years of diverse experience. His journey spans from counseling to higher education, business consulting, and the dynamic realm of the music industry. And Oswaldo thrives on the uniqueness through each field brings and is fueled by a passion for exploring new ideas and fostering connections with individuals across different domains. He's excited to continue making a meaningful impact through his versatile skills and commitment to social well-being. And then we have Dr. Ulrich Keller, another dear friend of mine. Before his big tech sabbatical, he served as chief of staff at Google, where he led strategic planning and execution. His contributions to Google's growth span various senior roles. Dr. Keller holds a doctorate in medical and managerial economics, two master's degrees in international business and law, and a bachelor's degree in international business. He also serves on several boards and is actively engaged in venture capital and private equity deals, as well as philanthropy. And he is also just a serial entrepreneur. And actually, his nonprofit organization, we partnered with him on our ecom site. So a little portion of purchases that go through our ecom go to his charity Nalam, which is to help orphan girls in India. So thanks, guys, for being on the panel today. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, and I'm just going to start with asking, what inspired you guys to start or become involved in nonprofit? And how has that mission evolved over time? Because it's definitely not a profit-driven industry, but yeah, I'd love to know what drove you to go in that direction.
Osvaldo, do you first want to start?
You can go
If
for
not,
it.
I'm happy to. Okay, cool. I have one small correction. I was not the chief of staff of Google. I was a chief of staff. There's multiple to be since we're being very, very transparent here. What's made me start working on profits? Easy. My mom tricked me. I started joining Google. So my mom's been going to India for 10 years, 11 years actually. The organization itself has existed for 10 years this year. We're having our anniversary party next week. And so she saw, do you guys remember when the tsunami happened? Right? Like the big tsunami all across the world, right? So there was always this reporting all in about Thailand, all the Western tourist destination, but it also the devastation was also felt in India. And she was very much inland when that happened. And she got to these coastal towns weeks after the tsunami had happened. And it's very, very poor people living there, no infrastructure, no support. And then she randomly met this, I think, priest. It's not a religious organization we're running, but religion in these areas is sometimes very, very important. So this priest or this bishop, actually, I think it was, took her to a school that's developing nurses from the lowest Indian caste. And then she started helping. And then she said, when she came back home, how can I make it bigger and bigger and bigger? And then when I joined Google, 7 years ago, yeah, 7 years ago, I found out that Google has a whole bunch of programs to support and enable Googlers to do good in the world. And then it just kind of went from there. Yeah. So,
Amazing.
and
So your
also,
mom helped to shape that. That's important. I feel like
definitely,
people who have that ingrained in growing up, like giving service. Yeah.
that's true. That's true. Osvaldo, what about you?
Yes. Thank you for sharing. And I think one of the biggest things that drove me into going into the nonprofit world was seeing the examples of my parents, my dad and my mom, and just seeing the impact that they created within the neighborhood that we've grown up in. Do simple tasks or even helping our neighbors through difficult times. But I think one of the biggest things for me is seeing the transformative power of support and opportunity for like our marginalized communities, especially wanting to fill the gaps. And like me, might have felt overlooked, and making sure that I simply support individuals and systems for long-term empowerment, and just making sure that they're, create programs that are sustainable. So I think that's what, drove me to stick into this world and this sector, because like Sophia mentioned, it's not about the money, it's about making sure that you empower folks and that you are creating the greater good, especially during these times. So I think it stemmed from my parents, and then just seeing the work that I've done throughout these years that really just motivated me and inspire me every day to continue the work.
Oh, I love that. You guys have that in a similar way. It's through your family being an inspiration point. So I love that. I think you can really see that in families that really instill those types of values to be of service. For me, it was actually the opposite. So it was something I was seeking out later in my life to learn more about and be a part of nonprofits. But so going a little deeper into the business side, what strategies do you use to stay aligned with your organization's mission and vision while still navigating all those external pressures like fundraising, local and state laws and international grants? There's a lot that goes behind running a nonprofit.
Do we
All
go?
right.
Or I don't want to hog the
Yes.
starting conversation, but I'm very happy to.
Go for it.
Yes.
Good question. So you just essentially what you're referring to is complexity, pressure, focus. Do I understand that correctly? Yeah.
More or less, yeah. All
So
the things that come
because
with it.
especially with fundraising, okay, fundraising in my or running an organization from small to zero, from zero to ground up, sorry, from ground up to zero, and then to one is really, really difficult, especially if the funding cost is very, very far from people's minds, right? So orphans, India is not what I'm generalizing now. The majority of people in Central Europe think, I think. There's also a lot of problems that we have to deal with ourselves. So the most important thing for us was how can we have the best or the highest impact with the few resources that we initially have 10 years ago. So we asked our partners, oh, sorry, and then the key thing is always similar with the doctorate or with any problem that you have, you try to make a vision. Where do you ultimately want to be? And that's a really, really wide vision. And then you break it down to one or a few tangible things. Think of like a pylon, tangible things that you can control, that you can work towards. And that helps you to tune out the noise, because that's your ultimate goal. If you think about personal happiness, for instance, if my goal is happiness, what does that mean for me? And then you dedicate everything you do to this happiness. From an organizational standpoint, we didn't even know what to do first, right? Because sometimes you come, by the way, I'm German, right? I've now lived in the US for 5 years, currently in Kazakhstan, but being very gender aware here, I know I look white, I am white, but I'm still German, so I'm very, very European in many think and in the ways I think. But I know I integrate really well into the US. The point I'm trying to make is my vision mindset might be a little bit different that of many other people that I deal with in terms of fundraising as well. And still, when I came from from Germany to India, and then I'll keep it short as well. When I came to India the first time, I had all these Western ideas. I was like, oh, we need to do this. We need to get them education. Or we need to find them jobs, and then let's do this, this, this. But in reality, what we really need to do is we need to create a sustainable way for us to continue to change and have the most impact. And that initially just meant we need to ask our local partners for a list of needs. And they help us because they know what they need, they know the urgency, and they also know what it means to have a good life. So for instance, we ask them for a list of needs, identify what's important, prioritize then, and then dedicate every single goal, fundraising, partnerships, organizations within legal limits to that goal. And because of the complexity and requirements and so on, we first started in Germany, then did Germany and Ireland, and as of last year, went to the US. So
Wow.
to summarize, I know this was a little bit of a thing, right? So absolute focus, key prioritization, and then having a clear vision in mind and dedicating everything and cutting out everything that just creates distraction and noise.
Hmm. Yeah, love that. Always starting with a
What about you?
plan is key.
For sure. Yeah. What
Definitely,
about you as well?
definitely agree with making sure that your plan is aligned with your mission statement and involving the team. I think that it kind of serves as a roadmap for us is going back to what we stand for with our mission statement and what are the realities of the operations, right? It's whether we creating programs or we creating grants, and how does this make us fully functional to make sure that we are creating impact. But also, I think one of the biggest things for us is having that transparent communication with our funders, and it's showing them the data points. It's having these conversations that if we weren't able to meet X, Y, and Z, these were the roadblocks, and that could potentially lead to additional funding. And I think that, just because they're the funders, we should not be scared of them. We should have these transparent conversations with them about, and all of our stakeholders about what is impacting our programming or additional funding is needed. But definitely going back to the mission statement, it's the roadmap for all of our work, whether it be programming, like I said, or grant making decisions, and creating greater good.
Sophia, may I ask Osvaldo for a follow-up on this one?
Of course, yes, it's a conversation. Jump in.
Very good. Do you mostly have institutional funders or investors, or is it individuals?
So we have both. We don't have investors, but we do have um, corporate America, and then we have individuals who are funding our initiatives.
Cool, very cool, exciting.
Interesting.
Only reason I'm
What about
asking,
you? Yeah.
so we so during COVID, right, 100% of our funding was actually small and individual people. First, all my mom's friends, and then it just grew from there. And then during COVID, we had to pivot, right, because there was no more in-person events, no more collections, and also scale was absolutely limited. Google made that possible one time first, and then secondly, that's when we started just connecting to or applying for grants. We have a really good network of small and medium-sized family associations, but the really big institutional investors we have not been able to get. Not because of scope, impact, or anything. We're super transparent. From $1,000 collected, like 950, 940, 960, depending on transfer fees and OPEX arrive. But I'm always wondering, how can you make that super, 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 super big grant application and then ultimately get it? If you have any light on that, please share.
Unfortunately, I don't, but that was actually my next question was what advice would you give to people applying for grants? Because it's a process and any business can apply for grants. And it's always at the top of our mind too. We're like, oh, we should apply for grants, but it's kind of like applying for college. You have to fill out these applications and it takes up a lot of time and bandwidth. And yes, it's easier now with AI. Maybe you could have some help with your application. But have you guys found anything like, say, Oswaldo, you working in a big company, doing this work, like what's the most effective way to get grants or like stand out from all the other applications? Because there's so many nonprofits going for the same pool.
I think one of the powerful tool is storytelling. And the power behind storytelling is sharing these authentic stories of impact. And whether it may be from a program participant to a university that I partnered with, it helps build that emotional connection, to be honest with you. And it's the power of storytelling is how do you make sure that when you are applying for a grant, you are telling a story that engages the potential donor to see the potential impact of them investing into or granting you the money. And I think that having this as an engagement tool would really help provide that clear pathway to the supporters that might be involved, and whether it be financially, but some companies, when they're trying to either give you a grant or and are not, you don't make the cut of, some, it's now competitive, let's be honest, right? It's a competitive
Mhm.
market. But for instance, for us is that, they share the news that they're not able to share the grant with us, but they want to send 10 people to come volunteer at our next event. So you start building that relationship with them. And I think for myself, I'm not in donor relations, and I know it's a unique niche, right, in regards to that writing grants, but the power of storytelling and making sure that you have that emotional connectedness to your application really does help.
Mm.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful because storytelling is important in so many aspects of business, but I actually probably wouldn't have thought about that for a grant. But that's, yeah, a great tip.
Really, really, really interesting. Adding to this, so I can tell you, we this is going to make us sound so backward, but everything we have done was offline, right? We had a website, but everything was done offline until really 5, 6 years ago. And then we really made a massive leap forward when we optimized our website, made online donations available. But the majority of the really funding comes now from small and medium-sized families. And in order to answer the question, we make it storytelling is a big part. We usually come up with 1 or 2 sentences, super TLDR, very Google. Hi, we need money for this in order to have this impact, and here's the sustainable outcome we will have. That's the headline usually. So we make specific grant-like applications, same framework, same structure. What do we want and why in the summary? And then we also say, what have we done in the past? And the past is actually usually a very tangible. For instance, in our annual report, which we also send to new organizations, we always highlight 3 key stories, longer term, of girls who we have helped. And we use their names, their real names, real first name, but everything else is anonymized. And the story is real, and it's so impactful. It's really, there's one, for instance, her name is Reika. I forgot her age now because we have 134 girls in the orphanage and then over 500 that we helped in total. So, and a lot of the names in this area are very, very similar because it's a very rural area as well. And yeah, so this one was at the orphanage, I think from age 5 to 8, maybe, had to work before that in a factory. And then she always wanted to become a lab technician. Fast forward 13 years. And remember, we've only been involved for 9 years, no, for 10 years. Yeah, she's now studying to become a lab technician and absolutely crushing it. And then we're also building an alumni network where individuals can come and visit. So we have a lot of family organizations or family foundations in Germany, in Ireland, that said, hey, can we actually make a visit? The German consulate to Chennai came to visit the orphanage as well. And so, right, so we give them the impact, vision, sustainable impact that we're having. And then, by the way, you guys can come visit if you want to as well. So that makes it very, very tangible. So we're very transparent.
Love
I,
that.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but one thing
No.
that I'm just thinking about what was just mentioned, is finding, when it comes down to corporate partnerships or funders, is finding someone within that company or entity that becomes your internal advocate. And I think that that's the most important thing, is that it might be someone that can relate to what you're doing, the work that you're doing, and they start planting the seeds internally. And this is what helps grow, um, the conversations internally and, potentially fund you. For example, with us, it's, I work with high school and university students, and some of these students graduate and they're young professionals and they go into these big corporate companies and they start, having these conversations with their bosses about how these programs impacted them. And
Mhm.
sooner or later, then we're getting phone calls from them, wanting to either donate or wanting to create a program, your mentor program or something sustainable. So it definitely, I would highly recommend is also trying to find those internal advocates that will help plant the seeds for executive leadership, because in a sad reality is that sometimes C-suite, they don't, they're focused on the company, right? And they're not really aware of what is going on outside sometimes. And having these internal folks really does play a pivotal role with whether it be funding or the launch of programs. So always find that internal advocate that will help plant those seeds.
Yeah, I love that. That is definitely so important. And interestingly, a theme from today that we've almost on each panel, you realize how important it is to have your network that's supporting you and to constantly seek that out in different scenarios. Love it. So one area I want to go into, which I don't know, maybe Ulrich, you know a little bit more, but I don't know if you guys, because you started your nonprofit with your mom, but are you using that to offset any of your entrepreneurial adventures? Because that's like one thing, I kind of want to talk about is how that's one way to offset taxes from your other businesses is by having a nonprofit organization. And I know that's what the elites do, but I think more people should know about it who are actually like genuinely want to help and understand that having a foundation or getting involved with charity can also help them with their, side business or their main business. Yeah. Do you have any knowledge or recommendations around that?
I hate to disappoint you. So my mom is actually a tax advisor assistant in Germany, or she used to be. She's 75 now. In Germany, I don't think like taxes are very, very strict. And so everything is very, very different than in the US. I don't know how it works there, but we've never done anything like this in Germany. In the US, we recently hired, well, he's actually doing the NGO work for free. And he immediately said, let's create a trust. Here's the foundation. Let's create a trust. And then we can do it to do this and this. And I was like, but we're all volunteers. So no, we have, right? So the vision here is maybe this is when we will start to offset some things. The vision for me is my mom eventually will not be there anymore. I will not be eventually there anymore, but I want this orphanage to continue to exist. And I want the sustainability programs to exist. How do I do this? I set up, remember, vision, clear goal, right? First was we need to immediately help. Then we need to have programs to fill. Now, how can we make this sustainable? So the vision here is we'll create a trust or a foundation, and then the sole beneficiary will be the orphanage. And then that will come into tax place and so on. But I have no insight on this at all. I have to say, US taxes is so different from anything I've ever done before anyway. So I trust my CPA 100%. But yeah, have not done it, don't know. Sorry, zero insight yet. But
No,
maybe
all
in like
good.
5 years, we'll see.
I mean, I think you kind of hit on the main point because from what I've learned, that's really, it's like you need to structure your company the right way. So if you have a company and then you start a nonprofit, exactly like you said, you want to restructure, get a living trust, and then you want to put underneath the living trust a holding company. And then underneath that holding company, you want your foundation and then your LLC or whatever company. So that's kind of how you structure it. And then I think you can get tax benefits from it.
I mean, what I can tell you from my business, I've got, which we also just set up this year, so everything is really new because we did it last year, right? Because when you're at Google, there's so many opportunities for all these projects at work, and it sucks you in a positive way. But when you leave and you zoom out a little bit, you're like, oh, there's other things. So for my business, we actually have a trust, an S corp, an LLC, and another LLC. The NGO is completely outside of this. Nothing of this is connected. And I'm not sure it should because I don't know, it's not the goal, right? So we'll see. I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe
interesting. Yeah, yeah. Is your
Yeah.
NGO separate or is that also living under a trust?
completely separate. The
Okay.
reason for this, so I did the application myself, and I have to admit, right? So I used like a third party, and they were not good. They were absolutely horrible. They found the wrong things first, and then it took us over a year with the IRS to get corrected. But we also, like Oswaldo said, we had this incredible internal person who was so patient with me at the RIS. And yeah, I don't know. You just like eventually we're just getting really targeted feedback. This is what you need to do. Here's how you need to apply it. And everybody talks so bad always about this, but I was really positively surprised. So
So the IRS is nice to nonprofits.
Sophia, I
they
know
were
you're
nice
gonna.
to us in helping us set up and correct a mistake that we made in the beginning before we even started in the US. So
Yeah, that's
maybe I did
great.
lucky, I don't know.
I know that for for entrepreneurs, there's the when you build a 5013C, right? Or I think it's a
Mhm.
501c, it's, considered a nonprofit. So I know that there is tax exemptions. As an organization, you become eligible for grants, and then there's reductions in certain costs for certain things. So I know, like, for example, like um, property taxes, whether it be supplies. So there's a lot, and even with like public and private donations. So there's a lot of things that do benefit an individual if starting a 501c3, because there's essentially it's a different tax. Um, it's considered like an organization, but there's different tax exemptions. So it just brings more credibility, and you're eligible for much more things. So I know that the process can be intensive, because you're not only submitting paperwork to the federal government, but it has to make sure that it has I think, staff, mission, what the work's going to be, and then once you're eligible, there's numerous tax exempts.
If
Okay. Yeah,
if I
that was
may
really
add to
helpful.
this, right? Ah, sorry, didn't mean to talk over you.
No, yeah, I just said,
Okay.
oh, that's helpful. So yeah, I'll go.
Okay. Sorry, there's a small delay here. Okay, so in terms of the 501c3, I am super happy to help if anybody has a question here. I can actually tell you what not to do, right? Because this is what how we learn. But yeah, so there's a couple of offers that you can use online to set up the process. But in order to do this, I would highly recommend you have everything in your business first completely set up, structured, formalized. You have the roles and responsibilities, and everything is there. Remember, we were active in Germany 8 years with everything to prove, documents and mission, and then we just need to copy it over for the US to the US. And then it worked a little bit different. And we're 100% volunteers. None of us take any salaries. All the trips that we do there, 100% privately paid. And so that made it also very, very easy. But if you start having payroll, expenses, real estate, all that stuff, we don't have that. Like I said, maybe in the future, but what we're now, as of now, probably in like maybe a month, maybe early 2025, going to be able to do is to offer people a tax certificate for their donation. Right, so that'll be really, really great. And then as of next year, we can also apply for US grants and company funding. And then it'll be hopefully even bigger.
That's great. Yeah, there's always so much to learn, and every business is different. I know a nonprofit, there's so many regulations, and it's a lot to get into. So I think definitely be prepared, know what you're getting into, and decide if you're ready for that if you're running another business too.
For sure.
And okay, I want to ask, so how do you guys see technology and marketing tools evolving in the nonprofit space? And what are the opportunities and risks that come with this, like social media? Because I'd assume it's a little bit more sensitive in the nonprofit space.
Me, you?
Um, I think so. When talking about like technology and social media, the digital platforms, right, allow us to reach wider audiences, right? It makes an impact. And I think with social media, it allows us to share real-time stories, create awareness for initiatives, um, and also for fundraising. I think that that's one of the biggest, right? Social media, digital technology. But I think that for technology, I think it's data. And I'm gonna, every grant that you're gonna apply for, the number one thing that they look at is data, right? It's like, how many people are you serving? What is the impact? One thing I will say that really, just if you want to make your applications a little bit more stronger, is participant surveys, is making sure that, like, from the pre, post surveys, making sure that you track all this data, and it does play a pivotal role with grant decision making from corporate America, but also for federal. grants, it really does play a big thing. Regarding like the what was the second part? You said negative, or what was the potential?
Yeah, what are the potential negatives that come with the space?
I think I don't I can't think of anything negative right now, but I just see I'm trying to think.
For example, like since you guys are, the Hispanic Fund, do you guys get hate, if you're
Um,
posting on social media or things like that?
I think no, thank you. I think that one of the with especially with social media is the cancel culture, right? It's like if something is either taken the wrong way, right? It can definitely, um, you have to be very, politically correct, making sure that we are not offending anybody, especially with all of our social media platforms, and making sure that, there's, you know, we're in a, we live in a world where, there's hate. So of course we're going to be receiving, these messages about, why are you only helping this specific group of individuals and not anybody else? So I definitely do see that, is a, social media haters, right? But also is the cancel culture is that on social media, right? It can even be with an individual, right? You can say the wrong thing at the wrong time and then it can be posted. And then, what happens is that there's all this negative um, commentary or even social media posts that can really impact you. So we as an organization have to be very careful that we're very strategic on what we post and making sure that we're not offensive, but making sure that we are instead empowering.
Yeah.
Maybe adding to this, I'll start on the negatives. Thanks for sharing those. So we remember I said I am German. The core part of the organization is German. We love data and we love privacy. And data privacy is super huge. As a small organization dealing with orphans, and maybe for context here, right? So India officially has, to my knowledge, abolished the caste system. Unofficially, to my experience, what we've witnessed, especially in the rural India, because the country is so massive and there's a lack of technology in a lot of areas, like to put in perspective, some of these people live on 20 to 30 cents a day. There's no water, there's no electricity. So there's a lot of very limited access to technology. And that also will take some time for older structures to go away in both the political, social, and whatever environment. And at the same time, there are a lot of cheap smartphones now available. And then Instagram is heavily used. And we just went through it. And so some of the people, the elders, or maybe if you make like a little bit of money, it's a status symbol also to have a phone. And there is internet consumption. And our leaders, so the leaders at the orphanage, super, super dedicated. They, of course, all have phones. The girls sometimes now have phones if they go to a bigger city. And the main concern why we were not on Instagram with actual pictures yet is because we were so worried about what the stigma of being in an orphanage as a girl would mean for their future, as in getting married. We don't have any negative things right now, but if you go to our Instagram, we've just started and we now only have worked out together with another organization, hey, what works, what we can do and where we cannot show. Initially, our website was limited, geo-blocked, right? So we had a geo fence around it where if you're looking from an Indian language computer, luckily my tech skills came a little bit handy. If your main language for the browser is Indian, you're not going to be able to see the website. And this was all with the goal of protecting the girls, because I do not want any situation like I post a normal video that I think is normal and it would hurt that girl's future in the long run. So main things in terms of AI, ML, is for us, it was initially data privacy concerns. We noticed that a lot of the smaller organizations are now having some sort of an over-reliance on automation, thinking that you're having this excessive automation. They fire one message after another, but it reduces this personal touch that we need, right? Because we're a small organization, we have 500 people, but we're really, really effective, by the way, per year, obviously. And that is really positively affecting our donor relations. Maintenance and upkeep, if you have multiple websites, multiple pages, in different languages. Everything needs to be kept accurate, up to date. That creates more time. And then it's, of course, a little bit more difficult to maybe demonstrate impact if you have this. And then finally, skill gaps are in terms of AI, ML are huge, right? Because everybody says, yeah, I can do this, but in reality, you really can't. Positive news is if you go to our website, we've automated a lot of our backend. We're using Google Sheets, Notion, and then we have a whole bunch of well, everybody would say AI now, but in reality, it's just machine learning in the backend that's running for us. So we have yet to launch automated outreach. I'm waiting until we have everything in the US in the books with a 501c3. So automated outreach, we have more data-driven donor targeting. We can also now, we did this process manual. So for instance, Sophia, your organization is giving us some funds, right? So profit sharing. You then will be able to say, oh, cool, I would like to have personal updates. I would like to donate or sponsor this girl. And then you see it through and you see her impact, right? And that's personal updates and personal small videos. We have more transparency, I think. And ultimately, my vision is also our fundraising campaigns, where with optimized analytics, predictive analytics, we were actually able to see what our impact will be for the next 2 or 3 years. Wow, so it's essentially like a little bit of forecasting that we're trying to do there, and that's all on the back of technology. And ultimately, everybody says, okay, there's such a massive cost overlap or cost overlay that you need to run in the beginning. Our costs have gone massively down because it's so cheap to run. Basically, we're paying $20 a month for. Actually, no, that's not true. I think we're at 120 now, but we have multiple, right? We have 2 websites. But it's massively gone down in order to have larger impact.
Okay. I was gonna say you named a bunch of softwares. I'm like, I'm pretty sure those cost money.
Well,
Yeah.
the good news is if you're a 501c3 in the US, and if you're registered, the majority of the US tech companies either have special rates for nonprofits. You just need to prove that you're actually doing something for a nonprofit cause. And there's so many grants available. Can I say some names? Like yeah. So for instance, a huge fan, right? So we've applied, we've also been awarded, but we've not used it yet because I need to have the data privacy, right? So I highly recommend everybody to go to, there's Google ad grants you can get. I think it's 10K a month if you qualify. That'll help, right? So, but remember, only use this when you have all of your backend in place, you have your marketing strategy in place. Once you have this, then you press play, and then you have your conversions optimized, and then you can break it down and look at it like a business thing. Google Ad Grants, Slack has options, like all of the big tech companies give you so much tech for good. And then if you go to something like Girls in Tech or another organization and find people that are passionate there, that's how we found a lot of our volunteers now, and they're incredible girls. And so it's mostly girls actually. For the very first time, we're seeing a shift we have younger and younger individuals helping us, right? Because my mom and her friends are like 75 years old. Then there's me somewhere in the middle. And now it's like 20 to 25. And that's so good. And then maybe they can take this over in the long run.
Yeah.
And it's all because of tech and tech organizations and tech events and something like what you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think tech, even just hearing you guys talk about it, it's like clearly tech is actually a huge part of helping nonprofits grow, but also interesting to hear that it seems like you do have to have a lot more sensitivity about your social media and what you're putting out there. Like Ulrich, to even just hear you have to think of, what the girl would be like later in her life, which I think a lot of companies wouldn't think about. So yeah, it's really fascinating.
Maybe adding, right? Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention now that, I'm thinking of like just technology is the hacking, right? These breaches, like one wrong link sent from a hacker can bring your whole company down. So you have to be very careful. I think especially in a world where we live now, it's like one link can really just, you know, breach all of our participants. And we have over 1.2 million profiles, which with sensitive information, right? That's with personal address, social security numbers. So we have to be like hyper vigilant when it comes down to these sending, random links, or attachments. just because it can definitely impact the organization. So I think that as technology is also evolving, we are also seeing that repercussion of hacking, and
Mm.
those breaches. So
Yeah.
So we
I feel like
had
you're going to say something.
Yeah. So I can definitely see this. So we rely on, I just checked, we have 23 tools that work together, and they're all big tools. So, and then we have two-factor authentication in it. We've not had any hacking issues yet because it's the big companies and they would have a massive problem. Plus, we're also too small, right? So let's say around 1 million in funding. And but the main thing that we actually had is there were people trying to impersonate us. So they create, right? So maybe you've seen this, like somebody pretends to be Amazon or whoever and sends you a text. We've received that as well. And I was like, why? We're so small, right? But that's
Yeah.
only started since we launched our new website. So,
Really
which looks
interesting.
good. Yes. So I think they think that we're bigger than we are, but that's the vision that we want to actually achieve to be. So it was
That's good. Yeah, but it's true. I mean, data is everywhere right now being hacked and it's just increasing. Do you think that they're targeting nonprofits more because they think it's an easy, low-hanging fruit? Like maybe they assume you guys don't have as much tech or finances put into cybersecurity?
not not in my perspective, but also I'm not an expert on this. I have no visibility on it. So the reason we rely on bigger tools or tools that are produced in tools that are produced with safety standards in mind, right? Because there's a common industry safety standard, mostly in the West and the US. I'm generalizing now, of course. Um, Data security is there. If you have two-factor authentication, like for instance, Slack, okay, then somebody's going to be on my Slack channel, no problem. If somebody hacks our Chase account and our Deutsche Bank account, okay, we will have a problem. But therefore, they need to get to 3 devices. I think it's more phishing attempts where they're trying to impersonate something. And this actually just happened for us. So we received an email and it looked very, very similar. There was one name misspelled or one letter misspelled in my email address, not from me, right? But somebody sent this and they sent it to the donor. And then the donor sent the money thinking it was us, but it was not us. And but remember, this is only because the initial donations were offline and they were not aware of how our new online looks. And then they didn't click the email and they thought it was just a spelling mistake. So
Yeah,
I don't have any insight, but
happens.
yeah.
Yeah,
How about this?
that's
One
interesting.
case in 10 years. So
Yeah,
I don't,
well, that's pretty good. Yeah. Wow. Very
yeah.
interesting. We have maybe time for one more question. I just want to ask, since being a nonprofit, it's so rewarding. And I think that's, the point to kind of get into it. The more you give, it's kind of they say it's a selfish act, right? You're doing it actually for yourself. But what's your favorite moment or program from your organization in nonprofit?
I don't know if it's so rewarding. Like I'm always frustrated, right? Like, you know, like,
Really?
yes. I'm
Okay.
always frustrated seeing what can we do? How can we do more? But let me put it this way. If we then go to India and we see, okay, great, like a year or two later, because I don't travel every day, sorry, every year there, and then you see the girls enjoying and you don't just see them safe in the orphanage, but you also see, oh wow, because we also have continuation programs, right? And then they complete their school or their basic education and training, and then they're individuals living their own life, being in self-sufficient. It's when it's really rewarding. Or when you have friends. So one of my friends and I went there last year. He joined, and it was so important for him to see. And then when my mom is there, she's super, super happy, right? And like, I mean, 10 years you become friends with the people running it as well. But the main program that I absolutely love is, so the orphanage has the space to build extra classrooms, but we don't have the funding, right? So, or not yet. Because with that, remember, business problem. Extra classrooms means extra teachers, means extra licenses, means extra blah, 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 everything. It's not just you build a couple of classrooms and then we're Gucci. No, it's you add on. Anyway, so we realized, okay, when you're 16 years old, when you have to leave the orphanage right now and I want to be mindful of time, then you're not necessarily self-sufficient. I wasn't 16 years old. Come on. And so my main program that I really, really like, and this was our passion, my passion project mostly, is self-sufficiency programs. So we find sponsors that commit to anywhere from 2 to 6 years, with the average being not 3 but 4 years, to send the girls from the orphanage that have to leave. It's anywhere from maybe 10 to 20 a year, to another school where they can do complete 1 or 2 years of high school, and then they learn a profession. And the first cohort of those has fully graduated now. They're nurses. It's 4 nurses, or all the numbers blend together. I need to look at my dashboard. It's 4 or 5 nurses. And all of a sudden, you see them super happy. They're marrying partners, just for the part of the story now. They're also marrying partners which are okay with them working, because sometimes that's not normal, or not commonly accepted in rural India. A huge fan, right? Just generalizing, letting everybody know here, no judgment. And yeah, so you see that their lives are completely transformed. So now the self-sufficiency programs are like, not everybody. Remember how I told you I brought my Western view on this? I said everybody needs to do this and this. No, now we can do, not everybody needs to become a nurse. Great. So if you want to become a nurse, we have a nursing program. If you want to become a tailor, or learn a little bit more about how to become a makeup artist for weddings, you become a makeup artist for a wedding and a tailor. So we have a whole bunch of self-sufficiency programs, which are all really, really effective with local partners, and it's good. That's my main thing.
Awesome. That's a great program.
What about you?
I'm trying to think which one is my, um, one that's been the most impactful for like just seeing it, you know, from start to finish, from implementation to the outcomes. Um, whether it be workforce, I did, dropout prevention in South Central LA. I think that one of the biggest things for me is all of the impact, all the programs that either I began and executed and we had great outcomes, is make just seeing our students become self-sufficient, like Ulrich said, but also it just showed the stability and creating the cycle of opportunity that just shows like the power of equipping someone with the right tools to uplift themselves. And having these tools makes a greater impact, because then they break generational poverty. They break, um, all of these barriers that once were limiting them. So I think like all the programs that I've either started and have seen and are still functioning to this moment, really just have played a pivotal role with me continuing this work. So just seeing the cycle and the uplifting of our participants that in our program. So that's for me.
I
I
love
love the
that.
way you speak as well, though. Sorry. Very, very thoughtful, very cool. Teach me.
Yes. Well, I love that. It makes sense that self-sufficiency is the most rewarding, because you want to get them on their own feet and into that path. So it's just really being an aid and helping people get on their feet and on their own path to empowerment. Amazing. Well, that's kind of a wrap, and I'll open it up just in case if anyone has questions for Oswaldo or Ulrich about anything nonprofit related. Let's see. Yes, and then we are dropping all the socials there so you guys can connect with them on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can also check out the website for Nalam. And yeah, that's really it for today. I guess if there's no questions, we'll just wrap up. And thank you so much, Ulrich. Thank you so much, Oswaldo. And I will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you
Thank
so much, Sophia and
Thank
team.
you so much.
you. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye-bye.
And to everyone on the call, thank you so much for coming to our first day of the Walk a Grow Summit. It really means so much that you guys are here.